Why do people betray those who help them? Why do trusted employees steal from their employers? Why do protégés turn against mentors? Why do families fight over inheritance? Why do friendships collapse the moment money, influence, or opportunities are involved? The answer is not always hatred. Sometimes it is something far more subtle and far more dangerous. It is a sin so serious that God included it in the Ten Commandments, a sin so deadly that the Apostle Paul called it idolatry. Yet today, many people celebrate it, excuse it, and even build their lives around it. That sin is covetousness. Today we will discover how greed quietly destroys relationships, corrupts character, and ultimately fights against God's purpose for our lives. Relationships do not fail overnight. They are often destroyed by attitudes that are allowed to grow unchecked in the human heart. One of the most dangerous of these attitudes is covetousness. We live in a generation where success is increasingly measured by what people possess rather than who they have become. Wealth, status, influence, and material acquisition have become the benchmarks of achievement. As a result, many people are willing to sacrifice loyalty for advancement, integrity for profit, and relationships for personal gain. What God calls covetousness, society often celebrates as ambition. What God condemns as greed, many now call wisdom. Yet the consequences remain the same. Covetousness destroys trust. Covetousness poisons relationships. Covetousness turns benefactors into victims and beneficiaries into betrayers. How often have we seen trusted associates undermine those who help them? How often have we witnessed people destroy years of goodwill because of a desire for more money, more power, or more control? Careers have been ruined. Families have been divided. Ministries have been damaged. Businesses have collapsed. Relationships have been shattered. Not because of poverty, but because of greed. This is why God addressed covetousness directly in the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not covet. God understood that before a person steals, betrays, manipulates, or oppresses, covetousness usually begins its work in the heart. The New Testament raises the warning even higher. The Apostle Paul described covetousness as idolatry. Think about that for a moment. Idolatry is not merely bowing before a carved image. It is allowing anything to occupy God's rightful place in our hearts. Whenever possessions become more important than principles, greed has become an idol. This brings us back to the story of Mephibosheth and Ziba. Mephibosheth was a prince living in obscurity, forgotten in Lodebar because of circumstances beyond his control. Ziba, on the other hand, was a servant who appeared prosperous. Scripture records that he had 15 sons and 20 servants. Yet, while Mephibosheth struggled, Ziba thrived. But relationships have a way of revealing what human effort cannot produce. When King David remembered his covenant with Jonathan, everything changed. A single relationship repositioned Mephibosheth. The forgotten prince was brought from Lodebar to the king's table. The man who had been overlooked was restored to honor, and the servant who appeared powerful suddenly found himself serving the very man he had once overshadowed. The lesson is profound. Greed may secure temporary advantage, but covenant relationships release lasting favor. Covetousness may produce short-term gain, but it can never produce enduring honor. What God has ordained for you cannot be secured through greed, manipulation, or exploitation. It can only be received through obedience, integrity, and divine favor. Let us therefore guard our hearts diligently. If God hates covetousness, we must hate it too. If God warns against it, we must take the warning seriously. May God deliver us from every trace of greed, selfish ambition, and covetousness. and may it help us build relationships founded upon trust, loyalty, gratitude, and righteousness. For in the end, character will take a person farther than covetousness ever can. Never envy what God gave another person. What God has assigned to you cannot be stolen by anyone, and what God has not assigned to you can never satisfy you. Contentment protects destiny, but covetousness destroys it. Choose contentment, choose integrity, and choose God's way.